The movie begins by showing a boy talking to a girl. The boy told the girl that they had both promised to get married someday when they grew up. To show how serious he was about it, he gave her a necklace with a key-shaped pendant. He also kept a locket that looked like a lock for himself, and it could only be opened with the key. Years passed, and the boy, whose name was Ichiju Raku, grew into a young man. It turns out that Raku belonged to a yakuza family called the Shuigumi faction. He was even considered as a potential leader for the yakuza clan, a big responsibility that meant he would take over from his father one day. But Raku didn't really want this role because he didn't like the idea of being part of the yakuza, which was known for violence. In reality, Raku was a gentle and kind guy. One day, as Raku was heading towards the school building, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a blonde girl kicked him so hard that he fell down. This really made Raku mad, and they ended up in a big argument. What made things even more intense was that this blonde girl, whose name turned out to be Kurosaki Chidoj, was a new student and would be in the same class as Raku. Chidoj came all the way from New York, and she had a personality like a Westerner, which means she was quite outspoken and acted like a tomboy. But that's not all. She was surprisingly strong, even stronger than Raku. She could easily knock him down with just one hit. On the other hand, Raku had feelings for a girl in his class named Kosaki Onodera. She was gentle and very feminine, just the kind of girl he liked. But he never had the courage to tell her how he felt. Raku secretly hoped that Onodera was the girl with the key necklace, the one who could unlock his locket. One night, Raku's dad dropped a bombshell on him. He told Raku that their yakuza group, the Shuigumi, was in a big fight with a tough New York mafia gang called Beehive. Raku got a glimpse of some of his dad's guys who got seriously hurt in a brawl with Beehive members. His dad explained that the only way to stop this feud was with an arranged marriage. The twist: Raku's dad had already set up a marriage for him with the daughter of the Beehive gang's leader. If Raku said no, there would be big trouble. Raku felt trapped because his dad had already made the deal. He had no choice but to go along with it. But when he found out that the girl he was supposed to marry was none other than Chidoj, the same troublemaker who kicked him, he was shocked. Chidoj was just as surprised and wanted to cancel the whole thing. But both their dads insisted they pretend to be in love to keep the peace between the two gangs. So Raku and Chidoj had to pretend they were a couple and act all lovey-dovey in front of everyone. It was awkward because they were just faking it. Plus, Chidoj's bodyguard, Claude, had a hunch that something was off between them. He kept a close eye on Raku and Chidoj during their fake dates. To make things even more awkward, Raku and Chidoj had completely different personalities. The news about Raku and Chidoj being set up together had spread throughout their school. Their classmates seemed pretty happy about it, even though Raku was trying to avoid it because he had a crush on another girl in their class. On the flip side, Onodera seemed a bit disappointed because she secretly had feelings for Raku. Meanwhile, Claude, who still had doubts that Raku and Chidoj's romance was for real, decided to keep a close watch on them, even while they were at school. Claude being around at school made Chidoj feel uncomfortable because her friends started avoiding her. Back at her old school, Chidoj had faced a similar situation where she had no friends because Claude was always hovering around her, scaring everyone off due to his and her father's reputation. Raku, seeing this, felt sorry for Chidoj. He had experienced something similar when he was always accompanied by yakuza members, as ordered by his father. Raku decided to approach Chidoj, who was all by herself in her classroom. He handed her a notebook that had information about all their classmates. Raku suggested to Chidoj that she should try to make friends with her classmates. This got Chidoj excited, and she followed Raku's advice right away. But here's the twist. One of her friends accidentally dropped the notebook with all the student info and got the wrong idea. They thought Chidoj had some bad intentions. That friend quickly told the others, but Onodera, who knew that Chidoj had just wanted to get to know her classmates better, invited Chidoj to join them and share more about herself. They went to become friends. Chidoj was overjoyed because she had finally found a new friend. The very next day in Raku's class, a new student named Marika Tachibana joined. She was incredibly beautiful. Marika's dad was a police commissioner, and just like Chidoj, she was always surrounded by guards. But what really surprised everyone was that Marika openly claimed to be Raku's fiancé and said they were going to get married. This came out of the blue for Raku because he didn't even know Marika. However, when Raku noticed the necklace Marika was wearing, which looked like it had a key pendant, he started to suspect that Marika might be the girl he made a promise to. Claude, who was always on the lookout, noticed Marika's arrival and asked Raku for an explanation. Raku quickly denied that Marika was his girlfriend and said he didn't even know her. To cover up the fact that he was only pretending to date Chitoj, Raku tried to convince Claude that he was head over heels in love with Chitoj, and he acted it out really well. Even Chitoj thought Raku had genuinely fallen for her, and for some reason it made her happy, suggesting that she might have feelings for him too. After that incident, Raku and Chitoj started getting along better and fought less often. But then, one day, Raku opened up about having made a promise to marry a girl with a key necklace and a locket as proof. He said he was determined to find that girl and keep his promise. Chitoj didn't seem to pay it much attention because she hadn't really thought about marriage, even though she was supposed to marry Raku. One day, Raku, Chitoj, and Onodera decided to study together at Raku's house. Chitoj showed up at Raku's place with her Beehive gang members, all dressed up in suits and ties. Inside Raku's house, the yakuza members from the Shuigumi faction were also getting ready, as they were responsible for protecting the future leader of the yakuza clan. Things got even tenser when Marika suddenly arrived with a special police squad tasked with keeping an eye on the police commissioner's daughter at the gangsters' headquarters. But here's the twist. The yakuza members locked Raku and Chitoj in a dark warehouse, hoping they would get closer and more affectionate. However, it didn't go as planned. Chitoj was actually terrified of the dark and clung to Raku in fear. Instead of comforting her, Raku teased Chitoj, calling her tomboyish and pretending to be brave, but now scared of the dark. Meanwhile, Onodera was at her own house. It was revealed that she was the girl who had made a wedding vow with Raku and had a necklace with a key pendant, which she kept in a special box. Onodera intentionally kept a big secret from Raku and tried to make him remember her in different ways. One of her attempts was to suggest doing a Romeo and Juliet theme for a school cultural festival drama, because Raku had mentioned Romeo and Juliet when they made their childhood promise. Her idea got the thumbs up from the teacher and her classmates. Raku was quickly chosen as Romeo, but surprisingly, Chitoj was picked to play Juliet, not Onodera. Although Onodera was disappointed, she still supported Raku and Chitoj in their roles. Raku and his friends decided to practice for the Romeo and Juliet drama at a mountain villa. In the evening after the rehearsal, they decided to play a game in a so-called haunted house. Onodera saw this as a chance to get closer to Raku, since they were paired up in the game. But then, out of the blue, one of their friends said Chitoj got lost in the woods, and they couldn't find her anywhere. Raku, knowing that Chitoj was terrified of the dark, dashed into the forest and eventually found her scared and trembling. Afterward, Raku spent time with Chitoj, gazing at the night sky. Chitoj, who had a secret crush on Raku, tried to express her feelings by saying that they were truly a couple. Raku, who can be a bit insensitive at times, didn't react the way Chitoj hoped when she tried to express her feelings. Instead, he made fun of her and said they wouldn't make a good couple. Feeling hurt because her love wasn't reciprocated, Chitoj went back to the inn. There, she had to hide her sadness once more when she noticed that Onodera was wearing a necklace with a key pendant, just like the one Raku had told her about, the girl he made a promise to. It finally dawned on Chitoj that Raku and Onodera had feelings for each other. So she made a tough decision to step down from her role as Juliet, allowing Onodera to take her place. What's more, she planned to return to New York. The next day, Raku and his friends did their final rehearsal before the performance. However, things took a turn when Onodera suddenly fell and injured her foot. Because of this accident, Onodera couldn't continue practicing and had to quit the drama because of her injured leg, which made it hard for her to walk. Onodera then asked Chitoj to step back in as Juliet, since the performance was just around the corner and they didn't have much time to find a replacement. So, Chitoj reluctantly agreed to play Juliet once again. The day of the performance finally came, and both the Yakuza family from the Shuigumi faction and the Beehive gang turned out in large numbers to watch Raku and Chitoj on the stage. They both seemed nervous but tried their best to give a flawless performance. Things started off well on stage, but unexpectedly, Chitoj started expressing her own feelings, making her portrayal of Juliet quite different from the character. At the same time, Raku also indirectly conveyed his feelings, leading to a quarrel between them. The audience, thinking it was all part of the act, cheered because they thought Chitoj and Raku's performance was amazing. Chitoj and Raku eventually realized their mistake and got back on track, continuing with the romantic scene. Meanwhile, Onodera, who watched the performance from the wings, couldn't help but feel jealous seeing the guy she liked getting cozy with another girl. After the drama performance, Chidoge asked Reikyu to meet her on the school roof, where she planned to tell him that she was leaving for New York that night. Reikyu, feeling a bit puzzled by Chidoge's words, decided to head up to the school roof to see what she meant. And there he found Onodera waiting for him, just as she had said. Onodera then confessed that she was the girl he had made a promise to, and showed him a necklace with a key that perfectly matched Raku's locket. She told Reikyu that she still had feelings for him all this time. Reikyu was overjoyed because he finally met the girl from his childhood promise. He thanked Onodera for liking him all these years. But there was a twist. Reikyu had to gently turn down Onodera because he had fallen in love with Chidoge. He apologized sincerely for it. Thankfully, Onodera understood and accepted Raku's decision. What mattered most to her was being honest about her feelings, and she wished for Raku's happiness. Realizing that his heart belonged to Chidoge, Reikyu hurriedly chased after her with the help of his bodyguards and Marika, who helped him navigate through traffic. He had to catch her before she left for the United States. But, as they say, true love always finds a way. Reikyu and his bodyguards were suddenly confronted by Claude, who challenged Reikyu to prove his love for Chidoge at gunpoint. Reikyu, however, didn't back down. Instead, he challenged Claude right back, daring him to pull the trigger and shoot him in the head. With a cold and determined look, Claude squeezed the trigger, but the gun wasn't loaded with bullets. Finally, Claude was convinced that Reikyu truly loved Chidoge and allowed him to go after her. Meanwhile, Chidoge was on her father's private jet, ready to take off. She saw Reikyu running after her plane, which was still circling the runway. In the cold, snowy night, Reikyu kept chasing after her, calling her name. Eventually, the plane stopped and Chidoge got off. She had initially planned to tease Reikyu when she saw him still wearing his Romeo costume, but she noticed he was exhausted and had a bruise on his face from his encounter with Claude. Chidoge then confessed that she wasn't the girl Reikyu had been searching for all this time. Reikyu confirmed it, but he also said that being with Chidoge made him incredibly happy. The movie ends with Reikyu expressing his love for Chidoge, who initially teases him but then responds with warm hugs and kisses on that cold, snowy night. So the moral of the story is sometimes you might chase after a key, but end up unlocking a completely different door of love in a Romeo costume.